Hey, you've got this part of the video. You've got the live unedited edition. Home Gadget Geeks Thursday night. It's the 27th of June. We're almost through the end of the year. It's 8 p.m. in the Central Time Zone, 9 Eastern, where my good friend Ed Sullivan is. Ed, welcome. It's good to have you.
It's great to be back, Jim. I haven't talked to you in a while.
It's been, well, you haven't been here in a while, but
That's
we
right.
we get
We speak.
we chat on an occasion, and so good to have you back.
I'm
Yeah,
concerned about whether our live viewers will be down due to our competition with the presidential debate.
well, Tony says earlier, he says, ugh, the debate is on.
All right, so Tony's in.
I think we're
He's with
okay.
us.
He says it's like watching a pile up on a freeway.
Well, he
Uh,
hasn't seen this yet.
yeah, we'll have to see how this really goes. Just 6 months till Christmas, which is true. Or more like Boxing Day. I think that's the day after Christmas. But yeah, we'll have to see. I don't know. I saw Brian out there earlier. I saw Ken out there as well. And you guys welcome. Glad we can give you an alternative to the debate tonight. Maybe you can go back and watch the highlights of it as it goes. If
Or,
there's
Jim, you and I can be two grumpy old men yelling at each other. It'd be the same sort of thing.
That's true. That's true. That's true. It's true. The Tony says I'd prefer to watch two people who make
All
sense.
right, we'll
And
try to
okay,
disappoint him in that regard.
we'll try to make some sense out of it. For whatever reason, we were trying to troubleshoot some of Ed. Ed's got something going on his side, so from time to time his video will lock up, and that's okay. We're just gonna go with it. Audio sounds okay. You guys will make it through. It should be fine.
We'll
It should
be fine.
Yeah, I'm thinking so too. Ed, I have in my glass, I have an old fashioned, same recipe as last week. I've kind of gotten stuck in a rut, so we won't. You can go back and listen to the pre show from last week. It's delicious, but you have an alternative tonight of some sort.
Well, tonight I thought I would just light a scented candle.
Nice. What kind of candle is that?
This is called the hot cake
Oh, it's a
oven.
tasty like a hot cake.
It's very tasty. I had forgotten I was sort of double scheduled, so I was at an event tonight for the worldwide launch of this.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Oh,
so I had to
wow.
leave and
Yeah.
come here and do a podcast.
Now, wait a minute. There's hot cakes before. How can this?
Yeah,
How can it be a worldwide launch of
uh,
something that's already been there?
different wrapper on this.
Ah, okay.
This would be your Connecticut broadleaf versus a San Andreas wrapper.
Okay. San
But
Andreas being from Mexico, right? Is
correct,
that right?
Connecticut broadleaf being from the USA.
Nice. So
Yeah,
it's American made.
it's Nicaragua.
The wrapper is American. Well,
Correct.
is it made in America or is it's a Connecticut? It's a seed from America that's grown in Nicaragua.
No, it's
Okay.
actually, this is from the great state of Connecticut.
Hard to believe they still grow tobacco in those.
Um,
I mean,
it, it,
candle wrappers in
yeah,
those, in those states.
it's
In that
way
state.
down. The land has become so valuable that
Yeah.
now it's
Yeah.
Walmarts and Amazon distribution centers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Agriculture is not what it used to be.
Yeah. No, and Kentucky used to be the same way. And we've
Right.
got family in Kentucky, and we go down there and you see big tracts of land that used to be farms that are now just grass for the most part. And, they're not growing anything on it.
Nothing.
Yeah. Well, it's beautiful though. They mow it. It looks beautiful. It's
They got that Kentucky bluegrass that
I
you
think
love.
that's where it comes from. Yeah. I think that's where it was invented there, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is it actually blue or it has a tint to it that
I've
makes it
never
bluish or
never been able to figure out why they call it Kentucky bluegrass. I'm sure you could look that up on our weekend discussions before I got a more powerful laptop. I would have said, Ed, why do they call it Kentucky bluegrass? And you
I know.
you would
I was
look it
your
up.
voice assistant for a while.
You were. Yeah, I had a laptop. I was taking a laptop out to the shed to light candles with Ed, and it was just underpowered. And anytime I tried to bring up a web browser, everything would get.
Yeah.
And so um, so I have a new laptop and we don't have to do that anymore. Um, Tony says he's having to water his yard 2 or to two times a day. It's so dry and
Wow.
hot. Yeah, Tony, we have the exact opposite problem here in Nebraska. It's raining every day, and Missouri is now, which was at some very, I won't say historic lows, but this winter, both the Mississippi and the Missouri were incredibly low. Everybody was like, "We're gonna run out of water." Well,
It's here.
not
You
so
had
much.
you had the heat though,
We did. It was 99
and then
with,
what? The big thunderstorms to go with it.
yeah, we had some tornadoes earlier in the month, and we've had some, I mean, so we've had some weather, but as I'm looking at the my radar map of everything, there are flood warnings all the way down the Missouri, all the way to Kansas City at this point. So I think everybody's they got 8 inches of rain up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota,
So
and they more rain than they knew what to do with. So they
in your
just,
command center, is it only one monitor for weather, or you got
no,
multiple
I've got two.
weathers?
I got two. Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, good.
I got two. If I need it, I can bring up a second one,
All right.
for it. So, but lots of rain coming down. In fact, the Gallup is right on the river, so
Mm.
we can see it. Slow motion flooding is what we call it. It just happens right in front of you. You just 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 floods, and it's not like a wave or anything.
Right.
It just slowly creeps in, and then pretty soon everything's flooded.
Huh.
But we're used to it, Ed. We flood all the time.
All right.
Why they we know the areas that are going to flood,
Mhm.
and yet they continue to put things on them, because a couple years go by and they're like, hey, wouldn't it be great if we had a park on that piece of property that's just sitting there collecting
Yeah.
weeds? And you're
A
like,
water park.
yeah. And you're like, well, it's because it floods. Oh, I know, but that was 2 years ago. It's not going to flood anymore. And you're like, no, it's on a 5-year floodplain. It's going to flood again in the next couple years. We just keep building these things, and then they get wiped out. We had massive floods in 2019, historic 500-year floods, that kind of stuff, and it came through, took out this whole trailer park that was down by the Air Force Base, took out part of the Air Force's base's
Wow.
runway. It
Oh boy.
it dug under the runway. I mean, it's massive flood. So what do you think they did? They rebuilt the runway. That kind of makes sense, because but the trailer park isn't that floods all the time. Guess what they're doing? Well,
Putting it
as
right
of
back.
yesterday, they were putting new trailers back in there. You're like, what are you doing? You know how this is going to end. I don't know. I don't know.
Some people don't learn.
Yeah. I don't know. All right. Well, I think that's enough time to get everybody. Where's my timer? There we go. To get everybody in here. Tony, good to see you. Brian, good to see you as well. Ken, a little bit earlier. I know, Ken, you'll be bumping out. Lots of Mac talk tonight.
Yeah.
And I'm happy about it.
There was a day when you weren't.
Yeah, there was a day that was I would have been ashamed.
Yeah. Yeah. And now you'll allow it.
Well, now I have it.
Well, we'll let you know
days.
if you need an iPad to go with all of the
Yeah,
rest of it.
I've been thinking about it since you brought this up. I thought, well, maybe is the iPad Pro the next device for me? I'm just kind of an email guy for the most
Yeah,
part.
I know what the next device is for you. I'll tell you later on.
Okay. All right. We'll save it. Save it.
It's
for
not
later.
out yet, but you'll need it.
Okay. Okay. All right. Save it for me. Here, we'll hold on. Let me make a note here. At the very end, what Ed let's see what Ed has for me to buy next. All right. Here we go. Let me kick this thing off. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 613 with Ed Sullivan, recorded on June 27th, 2024. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a more water than we know what to do with Bellevue, Nebraska. Flood warnings are happening. It didn't seem that long ago. People thought we were going to dry out, but that's not the case. These things seem to cycle in a course, we post the show in some pretty good weather tonight. I think we're all going to be set, but we post the show with some world-class show notes. And Ed already pre-wrote most of the show notes. Ed,
Yeah,
bang up job on
mine
this.
were not world class, but you're going to convert them to world class.
They were pretty world-class. I mean, they're better than most that I get from
Right.
guests that come on here, right?
The
So
links are the important things.
yeah, no, it's super helpful. It's always helpful. We'll run them through some AI and clean them up and do some of those kinds of things. But we'll post it with some world class show notes. We'll make them world class.
Thank you.
There you go. Out at theaverageguy.tv. Big thanks to our Patreon subscribers as well. For those of you who give every month, or you can jump in and join just 1 month, whatever you want to do. It's up to you. I don't care. I mean, I do. I appreciate you for doing that. But you can join the team, theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. And a big thanks to Adam Hickman, my good friend from Gallup. Oh, used to be from Gallup. Last
I
week,
thought you were going to say used to be my good friend.
yeah, that's true. No, he still is my good friend.
All right.
I had to tell him at the end of the show, I was like, man, I wish he used to live in Omaha. And I was like, we should have, I wish we'd have done more together when he was here. Big thanks to Adam for coming on last week. Ed Sullivan has been on the show before. Of course, you know Ed from the Cigar Authority and Sonic Cupcake. If you listen to the Ask the Podcast Coach show on Saturday mornings, Ed, always great to be around you. Welcome back.
Why, thank you. I'm happy to be back. You and I were talking about it, and I let you know about this new purchase I made, which was the iMac Pro M4. And, I've never had an iPad before.
Yeah.
For me, it always seemed like, well, what do I need it for? Couldn't come up with a use case for it because I always had a desktop and a laptop. So what is this thing going to do for you that they can't do? And, I think what finally moved me over to it was traveling more because my laptop is kind of a beast. It's, a 16-inch MacBook Pro. And 16 I went to just because I do sometimes remote live streams, of Cigar Authority. And boy, do I got to connect a lot of stuff to it. And I actually want the screen real estate. And that's the problem for me with a 13. I just feel too cramped for some of the stuff I'm doing. If I'm doing audio or video editing, it just feels cramped. So I like the 16 for that. But
Well,
the downside,
the 16. It's so funny you say the size of it. And if you took your 16-inch now and
yeah,
compared it to some of the laptops that we had maybe 6 or 7 or 8 years
right.
ago, right?
No,
It's
yeah,
it's pretty
it's
sleek.
almost monitor size of what we used to have, right?
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
resolution's much better.
for
So
sure.
you
Yeah,
can get a lot of stuff on the screen. The real challenge is, older person eyesight and how people want the stuff to be on the screen.
right.
And
Yeah,
but the problem with it, and listen, compared to the old laptops too, it's relatively light compared to what some of those were.
right.
But
Yeah,
if I'm on vacation for a week or more, lugging it around seemed like a lot of dead weight to be bringing everywhere. So I thought,
hmm
when I'm on vacation, primarily, what am I doing? I'm just mostly web surfing, email, that kind of thing. So I thought, well, why don't I try an iPad and take that with me when I travel?
hmm
Keep it a little bit lighter. And, I did do some traveling, so we'll talk about how that worked out. And, it's a little different now, too, when previously, when I was working full time, I had to do work even when I was on vacation. That's just the
right,
nature of, if you're
right. Yeah,
a
yeah,
VP of engineering, you
right.
don't really get full vacation time. So I needed the laptop. So, my only concern on the iPad was, what if I have a podcast production emergency?
hmm
And am I going to be able to deal with that on the iPad? So I think I figured out a strategy for all of that. And, I part of what got me going is I had some idle time and I happened to watch, the Apple event where they launched the iPad. And those get you too excited. Like, well, I got to have that. I'm not even sure why I need to have that. I need that. So I went perusing, and boy, they're not giving these M4s away, Jim.
No, they're not, huh? They're not. No, they're not.
No. All
Yeah.
right. Uh, you get to play the guessing game. How much for the cheapest iPad Pro M4?
Well, okay. So as we think about the regular iPads, those are coming in or $400-500, right?
Right.
So
And
this
the
is
cheapest would be the 11-inch, not the 13,
yeah,
right?
right, right. So I was thinking maybe $700 or $800 to start with.
Nine
Okay.
ninety nine.
Okay. So
We'll
$1,000. thousand
we'll
dollars.
get you the 11-inch with 256 gigabytes of storage.
Yeah.
And
Versus is I am I right on like on a regular iPad? Are
yeah,
those in the $400-500 range?
uh, I think maybe a little bit more for like
Okay.
an
Okay.
M2.
All right.
Maybe
Yeah.
$600 or
Okay.
something. But
So yeah, you're in that price range, but you're basically, I mean, you're still talking about just the phone OS, right? That's on there, the Mac, the iPad or whatever they call that
yeah,
OS. So it's it's apps dependent. It's right. I mean, you're not talking about a file system OS like you would see with
you,
Mac or with Windows.
you're not. And that's part of the confusion of this product. Why are you taking the most powerful processor that you make
Yeah.
and crippling it with I don't mean to be unkind, a rinky-dink operating system.
Well,
And
or are you taking an efficient operating system and putting it on top of a pretty fast set of hardware to
right,
give it even more power? I mean, you could say it that way, right?
yeah, I mean, a lot of the reviewers are saying, well, they really need to run Mac OS on these things, and Apple has zero interest in doing that. They've always made more of a distinction between their tablet and laptop world than I think Microsoft has, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
So,
Yeah.
Apple's looking at, okay, the iPad is a touch device. The laptop is never going to be a touch device.
Right.
And, somebody was asking a marketing guy at Apple, and it's pretty simple for them. 80% of the laptop owners also own an iPad. So why are they going to make something that means you only got to buy it once,
Right.
right? If
Right.
all of a sudden everything is in the iPad,
Yeah.
then what the heck are you getting a laptop for? So I think they really view them as very distinct devices,
Mm-hmm.
with the iPad being a touch first device. And obviously their laptops have no touch interface.
Right. Right. Well, they
So,
tried. Remember when they
oh
tried?
yeah,
Remember when they had the bar up on the top?
oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
they moved away from that. Well, Jim, I mean, I know you're a high-end guy. What's the most expensive?
Don't mock me on my own show, Ed Sullivan.
What do you think for the most expensive
Oh,
iPad
cer-
M4?
yeah, certainly couldn't be any more than $2,000 for the most expensive one. Right. These are iPads that we're talking about, right?
I understand that. It still
Yeah.
comes in at $3,077.
Holy buckets.
Well,
Yeah.
that's getting you everything. That's getting you 2 terabytes. You're getting the nano-texture glass, Wi-Fi, and cellular. You get the Pencil Pro with that, Jim,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the Magic Keyboard. What more could you ask for?
$3,000 phone. That's right. It's a phablet. Right. Listen, no. I mean, it is powerful. And I think
Yep.
I have to be thinking. I mean, it's a lot of storage, a lot of space. You're thinking about somebody who, listen, I could probably get away with this instead of a laptop. Because I
It,
do mostly email. I do web-based things, right? I can run. By the way, are we running? Are you running? Is the camera coming off of the iPad Pro or is it coming off of your MacBook?
what the camera I'm on is
Yeah,
the MacBook.
you're on the MacBook right now, not the iPad
Yeah,
Pro. So
yeah.
for folks who are like looking, your video stuttering every once in a while. That's not the new iPad Pro, thank
No.
God, that we're on. Could we do you think we could have done this on the iPad Pro? There's a StreamYard I think has an app.
Yeah, I don't see why not. It's become easier to use audio interfaces since they went to USB-C.
Mhm.
I was playing around earlier with, I'm using a Moto M2 right now. And I was using that earlier with the iPad just to play around with it. So I think we could do the exact same thing on there.
Yeah.
And I should be able to run it through the browser on there as well, I would think.
Yeah. I think StreamYard has an app
Hmm.
for the phone. I think. I'd
Yeah,
have to go back and look, but that's always the concern. You're as a podcaster, as a podcast producer, you're doing video editing. That certainly that processor is up to the task of that. But it
right.
requires all those apps, right? You're going to need some Adobe stuff, or right to be able to do that. Would you be comfortable doing
Well,
that on the iPad versus doing it on the MacBook?
I think so, except you sort of have to change your tool set, which is that, is a barrier to entry for me. But
Hmm.
you could certainly use, they just came out with the new version of Final Cut Pro for the iPad. And then they've got Logic Pro for the iPad, for the audio editing side. And they're both good tools. In fact, they've really revamped iPad. I was playing with some of their new functionality. You could really use the new iPad as a mobile video solution.
Hmm.
They just came out with, I think it was just last week, so I haven't had a chance to play with it that much, but there's an app now for iPhones and iPads called, I think it's Final Cut Camera. So what you can do essentially is bring up Final Cut Pro on the iPad, run the camera app on any iPhone or iPad, and then wirelessly connect that to Final Cut Pro,
Mm.
up to 4 cameras, and all the way to resolution, right? Uncompressed video.
Hmm.
I think that'll become a bottleneck with your network potentially if you're trying to take 4 streams of
Yeah.
uncompressed video.
Yeah.
That's a lot of data.
Yeah. You better be near your devices for
Yeah,
that, right? Yeah.
but you can certainly go 4K with the cameras.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
easy setup, and then you can record. The other extension they made to it is you can put projects on an external device now.
Hmm.
Right, so you don't have to worry so much about what the storage capacity on
Right.
the iPad Pro is. You could, put an SSD, connect an SSD to it, and record the project to the SSD.
Hmm.
You'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they've got really pretty good multicam editing that they've built into that. You can go through and decide, for example, I want the audio from this device, and it records audio from all of them, probably mostly for syncing the multicam, right? So so that it has a decent way to sync all of that. But
Hmm.
then you can click a button, just say use the audio from this device. So if I were to do it, I would use an audio interface connected to the iPad. Then you could use, whatever microphones you want, just the way you would, and record it. When you're all done, say, okay, well, let's just use the audio from the iPad, which
Hmm.
is, pristine audio from the audio interface. So I think you can easily do your podcast production and video production from this device now.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a different workflow, right? I mean, it's just kind of,
Different apps and
yeah. Yeah.
you
Different apps,
know
different workflow.
right. So for me, when I'm doing audio editing, I'm mostly a Hindenburg Pro user. I just find it's the most sensible thing when you're really editing spoken word. You really don't need a lot of the bells and whistles. So
Hmm.
that is not available as an iPad app.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so what I decided when I'm traveling, there's actually a very good iPad app called Jump Desktop. And that's a remote desktop app. So what I've done when I was actually away in Canada last week is just connect to my iMac Pro at home, and then do all the audio stuff that I need to do on that
Hmm.
device at home
Yeah.
through the iPad with a remote desktop. So
Right.
for me, there's just a couple edge cases where I need applications that are not available on the iPad.
Yeah.
But, they're all on my home computer, so if I can get there, I can get the work done. So I think for me, it's usable for my purpose, but man, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I,
Well,
I
yeah.
didn't spend the 3,000, but
Right.
they
What did
got
you
me
get,
pretty
Ed?
good.
What was your configuration?
So I ended up with the 13-inch. I went 1 terabyte, although I probably could have got away with 512 gigabyte. But
You always regret that. You always regret it. It's
well,
probably good. You're always like, 4 years or 3 years into the product life cycle, I'm always wishing I'd bought more storage. So I think you never go wrong by getting a little bit more than you need.
and Apple almost forced it a little bit the way they configured these, just because if you buy 256 gig or 512 gig, automatically that comes with 8 gigabytes of RAM.
Okay.
If you buy the the 1 terabyte of storage, you get 16 gigabytes of RAM.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I thought, well, all right, I kind of want the RAM as much as I want the storage, so let's do that. And the other thing I cared about was nano-texture glass. And part of that is, listen, the displays on these are beautiful, but the glare is brutal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the nano-texture is actually pretty usable in sunlight even.
Mm.
You get
Hmm.
you can still see what the heck is going on with it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's, you know, the displays on these are gorgeous, right? It's
Right. Right.
OLED displays, but then they use this double layer OLED, so the brightness of it is much brighter than previous iPads. Some people don't like the nano texture because, I mean, you do lose some of the crispness, and then they'll say, well, the blacks aren't as black. Well, I don't know. It's still the nicest looking display I own. And so, maybe those distinctions are lost on me.
Hmm.
It looks pretty good to me. But, getting the 13-inch, 1 terabyte nano texture with the Magic Keyboard still sets you back $2,348.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit change.
A little bit of change. You could get a
Yeah.
really nice laptop for that money.
Yeah, I mean, you can get a comparable MacBook for that
Yeah,
kind of money, right? At this point, now it's still an M2, right? At this point, the M3 went only to the
right. I think,
something
eh,
else.
from what I understand, M3 was sort of short lived because they were having yield problems,
Mm.
the M3 chip. And really, if you remember when it came out, it was just sort of weird. They weren't comparing the performance of the M3 to the M2. They were comparing it to the M1
Mm,
because it really didn't give you much beyond the
yeah.
M2.
Yeah.
Uh, the M4 certainly kicks it up, and for only $2,348, Jim, I got the most powerful YouTube and Netflix watching machine ever made, ever.
Well, that's probably true. You're
Yeah.
probably, yeah, that's probably
So
some
I
truth
can
to that.
probably watch the same video in half the time you can, Jim,
Y-
just because
Uh,
of the power of the
well,
machine.
and you'd be smarter than me when you were done with it. Well, okay, but that being said, I mean, yes, it can do those things, but I'm kind of thinking about, and I don't know if these guys exist anymore, but the road warriors who are out doing
Hmm.
presentations, they're showing things, they're bringing stuff up. I mean, it's still, from that standpoint, it could still be a pretty good little productivity machine, especially from a display standpoint, to be able to do a lot of those, a lot of those kinds of things that need to be done on the road, lighter. I mean, again, I'm getting to this point now where some of my apps, like I want to run the Blue Eddy app that
Right.
for my battery only on an iPhone or Android, right?
Hmm.
Android tablet. I want to run the Birdfy, I think is what Aaron called it.
Yeah.
Birdfy only on the iPhone. I can't,
Right.
like, or Android. I got a tablet right here, but it's those kinds of things. You're like, well, I mean, yeah, I could go Mac laptop if I wanted to, or I could carry around Windows, but it's not there. I think we're getting to a point where some of those things are just because we're getting so phone centric on both Android
Right.
and iPhone, right? Um, Brian says in chat, he says, I think the basic iPad works for 90% of people, but I think the Air is a sweet spot. You might find one model year old for a decent price. The M1 still holds up, right?
Yeah.
From that standpoint.
I think he's low with 90%. I'd say 95% of the people.
Yeah.
For me, I wouldn't have even considered it except that I'm writing it off as a business expense.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
it just, in the end, I could have done everything I need to with, an M2 iPad Pro or iPad Air. The Air is a fine machine.
Yeah.
So what would I lose? I'd lose my textured glass. Um, I'd lose two M's since it's only an M2. And, I think the display is not quite as good, but it's still a very nice
Yeah.
display.
Yeah.
Um, I think they finally fixed the camera positioning on this one.
Hmm.
Right. Because,
So now it's in landscape.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Because that was always an oddity of the other ones, it was down the end there. So I think it's helpful to
Well,
have
it
it
does
in.
make sense to
Yeah.
have it portrait. I mean, your
Yeah.
this world of landscape that we've created. You and I are both in it now,
Right.
but it would actually make more sense. I mean, I could kind of force us into it like this,
Right.
right? And
Hmm.
this actually, and I used to podcast this way at Gallup, but the landscape mode is, it's funny how we become kind of landscape biased in some
Yeah.
ways when portrait is really the right way to be doing this, not landscape, right?
I think you're right. I mean, you
Yeah.
really don't need a wide shot like this.
No, no.
You
This
know,
would
I got
this look
plenty of
would do
space
just
on
fine.
either side of me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
this actually looks, I think it looks more professional. I think it looks more but yet I default to this look
Right.
here. Again, podcast listeners, very very sorry, we're switching between landscape and portrait. Apologize for that. If you can head over to the you can head over to the channel. I think it's youtube.com/the average guy TV if you want to see the live version of this. You can, but yeah, so it's funny how we say they fixed it, but I actually think they did
You
that
think they broke it?
intentionally. No, I think they did it intentionally in the days, and they just could not drive usage
Mm.
over to, I mean, the iPhone still does it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, so
Well, and part of it is that the usage of the iPad changed a bit, right? If you think about, well, if I'm really using it just as a tablet, wouldn't you rather hold it vertically, if you're on a FaceTime versus holding it horizontally? It's really when you add the keyboard
Yeah.
that you're going to a horizontal orientation. But
Yeah.
if you're using it just as a tablet, it makes more sense to hold it like a portrait
Yeah.
mode
Yeah.
device.
Yeah. And actually, in productivity modes, when you're writing, it
Mm.
makes more sense for it to be in portrait and have the page like it's not, nobody turns the page landscape and then starts writing on it, right? We
Yeah,
all take notes in portrait. And it's just funny how, I have a monitor, one of my monitors down here is set up in portrait.
yeah.
And I've had folks say it's the most natural way to interact with documents,
Well,
spreadsheets,
absolutely.
writing, some of those things, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know, Jim. I don't think you're going to change that now,
No, no, I'm not in a position to change it, but it's funny how, you said, well, they fixed it, got it to landscape, and that makes sense from
Yeah,
where we are today, but
yeah.
it kind of should be portrait. Brian says out in chat, he says, as a consumption device, I find it great, talking about the iPad.
Hmm.
As a productivity device, I definitely reach for a computer whenever possible. I think, Ed, that we're in this changeover period where we're going to be and where productivity apps are probably going to get better for the iPhone and Android.
Right.
um Although Android's so weird, I nobody talks about that OS. I shouldn't say that. I'm sure there's plenty of people that do, but it gets so little, like, it's so little conversation. But definitely iPhone, right? So the
Hmm.
app environment, I think we're going to get more of that, or this may push developers more in that way, as we get more power on those devices to be able to do
Right.
that kind of stuff. And I wonder if the old school, Tony had mentioned, earlier about, yeah, you can't access a file system. I wonder
Yeah.
if we're moving to a day when the file system is irrelevant. When you're like, you don't, why do you need access to the file system? If there's ways to get your, like, I think
Yeah.
tonight I was making this outline, this here on the live page, this outline, and I was changing 613 down here to 612, and I was
Yeah.
changing it in Canva, right? Now, I don't go into Canva and open a file, right? I just go to the website and open up the last instance of it, and
Sure.
it's only the silliness of having, because I use Windows, having to download that thing and then bring it back in to StreamYard, where if that was all integrated, I'd change it in Canva and it would just import it into
Yeah.
into Stream, right? So
Yeah.
maybe those days are numbered.
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely converging somewhat, right?
Yeah.
With people, well, I should be able to run my iPhone apps on my desktop. And then you start to look at, if you go the route of all productivity apps, then you get into this sort of, okay, but I want to see more than one thing at a time,
Yeah.
right? So now windowing starts to become a thing. And since you don't have I didn't even know it existed till I got an iPad, this thing they call Stage Manager,
Mm.
which is a very clunky way to do some windowing of apps on the iPad. Essentially, you create a stage and you can put up to 4 apps on that stage. And
Hmm.
listen, it can be kind of fun. You can resize the apps, and so for stuff that I normally run on the iPhone, I might have a stage with 3 different apps in it that are all sized to look like they're running on an iPhone, right? So it's like a side by side 3 iPhone apps, and it's actually, well, listen, they got enough power. It's pretty efficient. It just feels clunky to me.
Mm.
And even the keyboard thing is, it's nice to have a keyboard, but then I don't know if you've seen it when you're using the Magic Keyboard. You don't really get a mouse pointer. You get kind of a little circle that represents a touch area. So some of the things, for whatever reason, I'll go click on it, and it doesn't seem to work unless I double click it, even though it's just a link.
Mm,
Whereas if I go
mm,
touch the screen, then it's fine. So, there's little idiosyncrasies
yeah.
that you get used to it in a hurry, but it's not the same experience as working on a laptop at all.
Right. Right. Well, and we're probably in this cutover era, right? Or this
Mm-hmm.
changeover where you have a mixture of these different OSs that, we're Windows 11 on the Microsoft side. We've got a Mac OS that we're running, whatever version. I don't even pay attention to it. It just tells me to update it. I couldn't tell you the
I,
name of it. I
I've lost track of where they're at.
Yeah,
I have to go about this Mac to see that it's now Sonoma.
Sonoma. Okay, so didn't know. And to be honest with you, I mean, if I didn't listen to a Windows podcast, I probably wouldn't know that much about the Windows OS either.
Mm-hmm.
Now I use it. I've got two PCs on the Insider program. I just had my Surface just crashed and burned on the Insider program, and I had to reinstall Windows 11 from scratch, which got me out of the Insider program and a bona fide version of Windows 11, which is kind of interesting
Huh.
to be on. It's a nice little hack to get in there. Shouldn't be running that Surface Pro 3 that I have should not be running Windows 11, but it's running it just fine. And
Hmm.
um and so okay, so if I didn't know, if I didn't listen to a Windows podcast, I wouldn't know, and I probably wouldn't care either. But then, like I mentioned, we've got this iPhone OS, which is super popular, and Android, which can do some things.
Yep.
And you're like, okay, so we have this weird productivity time where there's these four of these. And you know what? Maybe it's okay that we do some things on our phones that are made for
Right.
this size. And then when we need to do heavy lifting, we go to something else that needs a little bit. Maybe that's okay. Maybe it doesn't maybe there doesn't have to be one thing to do it all. You know,
So it's okay that I have a desktop, a laptop, an iPad, an iPhone, and an Apple Watch. And
they all
you got
have
to stop
different.
to think about, wait a minute, where do I do that one?
Uh-huh. Well, but I think about, the things the watch does really well is track stuff in us.
Yeah.
And what my phone could do that, but it doesn't do it very accurately.
No,
Then
let's
yeah,
be honest. How often do you open apps on your watch?
never.
No.
Well, the workout one. And I'll
Yeah.
be honest with you, talking on it is kind of clunky. Yes, you
Mm.
can do it, but if you have any conversation that's longer than 3 or 4 minutes, I find myself holding holding my arm up with my other arm.
Hmm.
It's kind of like that weird thing we've gotten into. Remember when we used to talk on our phones and we would put it up to our ear and we'd hold phones that way? And now you see people holding it
Just
out in front of
yelling
their
at their
face.
phones.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the new way of talking on phones. You just put it out. Everybody's, so, you kind of wonder then, is there a spot? I am seeing more and more. Well, you didn't even mention what's the
Oh
uh
yeah.
what are the ear versions, the
Uh, Air
AirPads, AirPods,
AirPods. Yeah.
AirPods. There we go.
Yeah. I
Um,
I don't have those. I
yeah, but
I
those
can't
could
figure
have
out
some
why I
things in
need
them.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm seeing more and more people just wearing them regularly, and then
They walk
you
around
know,
all day with them. Yeah.
yeah. Oh.
Uh,
So it's there. So there. I guess what I'm saying is there's some element, Ed, of right tool for the right job. And I
yeah.
wonder sometimes in technology if because these things are expensive, but so are tools. Like,
Yeah.
have you bought a really good table saw, or have you bought any name any of those kinds of tools? I mean, they're pretty expensive too. Maybe they're not $2,300 expensive, but then again, they don't have the technology that's in them. But I'm just kind of wondering, maybe we should resist the urge a little bit to say one thing to rule them all. I've been watching a lot of Lord of the Rings lately.
Yeah.
Instead of saying right tool for the right job.
Listen, Apple's resisting it. If you can sell me four things, why do you want to sell
Sure,
me just one?
sure. No, right. I mean, I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to be the jackass that takes the iPad and holds it up. I mean, in the early days of the,
Yeah.
you know, no, I don't want to be that guy.
Although
I want, want my phone.
those giant iPhones are almost an iPad.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are
That the
big
phablets
phones.
in between. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about for you. Let's talk about real world usage. You actually got an opportunity. You bought this for a trip that didn't turn out, but you went somewhere else
I went
instead.
somewhere else. Well,
What?
let's backtrack for a second and
Yeah.
talk about what you got in the package and all the other crap you need to
Oh,
buy.
sure. Yeah, 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 yeah. Go.
So, for my 2,300 some odd dollars, well, it was interesting because I ordered this during the event, right? And somehow it took a month for them to deliver the actual iPad. I got the keyboard the next week, so I got to, pretend I was typing or something for
Yep.
for
Yep.
about
Yep.
3 weeks. But in the package itself, man, they seem to be almost cheaping out. In the package you get a 20-watt charger. I mean, couldn't they give you a little bit more than that? But it's 20 watts. And the thing that horrified me, just because it's Apple, I got, a nice white 20-watt charger and a black USB cable. It's like, Apple,
What?
this is not right.
That is weird. That is
Yeah, I
weird. They're
don't know.
usually really particular about that.
It didn't look right to me. And
Okay.
because I got the nano-texture screen, I got the magic cleaning cloth.
Oh, does it
And
talk to you?
according to Apple, this is the only thing you can use to clean this screen.
Man.
Nothing else on earth, I don't think. Just this magic cloth. And I mean, I'm trying to keep careful track of it because if you need a new magic cloth, it's $20.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
listen, it's not a regular
So
cloth, apparently.
this
It
microfiber
looks a lot like
oh,
that, but
that
this
I
is
used
the
to
no.
clean my glasses.
The
No,
well,
yeah,
keep
scratch it.
that
It'll
away from
scratch it.
my nano texture because that is not going to work. So, yeah, I mean, it's the standard thing. Listen, I still like wired headphones.
Hmm.
I'm not
Hmm.
not a Bluetooth guy.
Right.
So the first thing you do is say, well, there's no place to plug those into this thing. I got to go buy the Apple thing. So,
Yeah.
I had to order up a USB-C headphone adapter. Although they seem to have come down in price. I think even the Apple one is $9 or something.
Huh.
So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
outrageous,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
somehow they're using the thinnest cable I've ever seen on that thing these days.
It's almost like if you blew on it,
Yeah.
would it would come apart, right?
Well, and it's one of those things where it's very easy to lose and
Yeah.
misplace. So I'm
Yeah.
glad they're cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Um,
got that. It's got that wispy. This is actually a little
oh,
stronger,
that is
but
way,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm trying. Oh, hey, wait a minute. I have one of those. Hold on. This is more of what you're talking about, right?
Right.
Right there, right.
It's a
This is
little
the
wet
headphone.
noodle. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the lightning to. This is kind of that
I,
adapter, right? That is
right.
like that. Now you have USB C on that on your
Well, and
one.
and here's the problem, right? Reach into your backpack and pull one out, and then try to plug it in and realize, oh no, that's the one for my phone.
Oh yeah, yeah,
That's not the one.
yeah,
Although, I guess
yeah.
if I had a modern iPhone, then a USB C would work for both. But
Because it does fit. This is a USB C. Um,
Yeah.
adapter, right? This is the VGA adapter, or the
Yep.
I'm sorry, HDMI for your iPhone, and this is USB C. This is Lightning. It will go in.
Yeah, I don't
It,
think it's going to work for you, Jim.
oh well,
But the converse isn't true. If I pull the USB-C one out, it's not going into my
not gonna go
iPhone.
Lightning. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Oh,
and then I thought, okay, well, I've got the sort of case protection of having the Magic Keyboard. It's basically a folio case as well, but I still wanted a tablet sleeve. So I grabbed one of those, that's more size to the tablet. But I just thought, they sold me a device that says it will charge up to 60 watts and gave me a 20-watt charger to with the
yeah.
device.
That does seem
So,
like a little. There's your. We'll show some of these. I'll bring some of
yeah.
these up. That's the
And
sleeve that you brought.
yeah, nice little case padded inside. And, part of it is I was a little concerned too about, I mean, I don't think anyone asked Apple to make the thinnest device they've ever made. So
Hmm.
I was a little concerned about just sticking that right into the laptop bag. So I thought a little more protection wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when
Uh,
you're traveling.
yep. So I bought a 65-watt USB-C charger, and that's a good thing to have anyway, because listen, that'll do a fine job on the laptop as well.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And this would charge my. I have a Lenovo laptop that I think has a 43-watt charger that came with it.
Uh,
So this I could do the laptop and have something else going at the same time. I think this is a nice charger to have, just
It's
to have,
it's a
right?
great travel charger. The
Yeah.
plug folds down into the body of it, so it's a very
Right.
thin device. Unlike a lot of the Apple ones are kind of bulky. They go
Mhm.
for this more
Mhm.
cube thing.
Yeah.
That I find that's easier to just slide into a pocket in the backpack.
Yeah. Yep.
Then
Yep.
you know what you get is on the actual iPad one USB-C port, and that's it. So I decided, okay, I may want to use an external monitor with it at times. I may want to connect power to it as well as an audio interface. So I thought, well, I better get a USB-C hub. I found a nice one. Yeah, that's the one I ended up with. Go to the other one for a minute.
Okay.
I think I gave you two links for them. Yeah. See, this one looked nice, right? It just plugs right into the side of the iPad.
Mhm.
It's not clear from the picture there, but it has a little bit of a lip on it on one side, right? And I think that's just because when when you well, yeah, I think you can see it a little bit. It overlaps, right? I think their theory was that if this is hanging off the side with just the USB-C, it'd be pretty easy to bend that connector
Mhm. Mhm.
if you were to move it. The problem I had was with that little lip, it meant that I could not plug it in if it's in the Magic Keyboard case.
Mm. Okay. Yeah.
so, so the only use case I could find for it is if you're using it as a standalone tablet. And then why would you want to be plugging wires into it
Right.
when you're
Right.
holding the thing?
Yeah.
It just,
Yeah.
and obviously I thought, okay, I guess theoretically it's USB-C. I can flip it upside down, but it seemed pretty clear that it was going to scratch the glass if you use it in that orientation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even if you were able to do it, then you couldn't close the folio case, right? Because it would be
Mhm.
sitting there. So I abandoned that one. I gave that to Whole Foods for a refund. and ended up getting the other one that has a wire on it. But that's okay, not quite as slick, but I can plug it in when I have it in the Magic Keyboard,
Right.
and it's got what you need in it. It's even got the headphone jack in there as well, and the HDMI. It's got plenty of stuff there. And SD card readers are in there. They crammed a lot into there
They
for.
did. It's amazing what we can get in the hub now.
It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. It's amazing.
And I
Brian
did.
says, too bad about the Anchor one. Usually they make great accessories. And I think they
I
do,
They
right?
do. They
Yeah.
do. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I just wasn't sure what their use case was for it. It sure wasn't usable by me. I'm sure it functioned well once you got it plugged in.
Yeah. Well, there was on the Surface side of things, there was a time when they wanted to get all of that on the side of the Surface. Now,
Hmm.
it had its own kickstand, it had its own keyboard that snapped in on the bottom. And so you had all that room and it looked slick to have it, one attachment right to the side.
Yep.
But for all the reasons you just said, like,
Yeah.
well, actually, it doesn't really
Yeah.
fit any of the equipment that I
No,
have.
and then you're going to have to pull it off when you go to put it away anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just as happy with this. And realistically, this is another edge case. It's got to be over 90% of the iPad users don't plug anything into it except a charging cable. you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
they're not
Yeah.
looking to read SD cards, but for me, if I had that DJI Osmo camera and I was away shooting footage, it'd be much simpler to just pull the SD card out of there, plug it into the iPad, bring it
Mhm.
into Final Cut Pro, and you can do whatever you want with it there. So
Right, right.
um, I think it makes some sense for me. But yeah, I I loaded all this technology into my bag and took it up to Canada.
Did they let it cross the border, or they're like, "No, you can't bring in this fancy equipment."
They had
They let you
no questions about it.
in. Yeah.
They figured, oh well, if this guy's got an M4, he's got money and he'll spend while he's here in Canada, and
Must be.
they were happy with it.
What'd you find yourself using it mostly for then?
As a very powerful YouTube and Netflix viewing machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the other frustration I have is not on Apple. This is on web developers. Some sites you go to really force you to download their app.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yep.
got a
Yep.
perfectly good browser here. I don't
Right.
want your app. And they detect that you're on a mobile device and insist that you download their app. And I have no interest in their app. You know, there are certain things that apps are good for, but not everything needs to be an app. But, other than that, listen, it's email. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a Gmail user. The Google stuff is actually decent on the iPad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I use it for my Gmail, my web browsing, and I don't know. Is there much more to life than that, Jim?
Well, I mean, did you try the remote desktop
I did.
connection
It
back?
it works great. It's
Yeah.
actually very responsive.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is that, yeah, I mean, overall, it gets pretty small, right? By by the time it's display screen, my 27-inch iMac Pro screen coming down to this size screen. So all the
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
it
The
looks small.
resolution problem at that point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Mm.
But I mean, it's all the text and everything is very clear, but it's going to be tiny.
Could
Oh,
you could you plug that into a big screen TV and use the TV? I mean,
Yeah.
use it that way. It makes the screen bigger, and then do whatever you need to do. Can would a mouse won't even would a mouse work on that thing once you were emulating the desktop?
Yeah, it works perfectly fine. So
Okay.
I can use the touchpad,
Yeah.
and it works seamlessly the same way that my MacBook Pro would work.
Uh-huh.
And the Magic Keyboard actually, in this version, they did add a function key row, which on the Mac can be very helpful just because they already have assigned functions,
Right.
like display brightness and volume adjustment and that sort of thing. But just for kicks, when I was in Canada, although it wasn't a critical situation, I did do one of the podcasts that I edit and produce for them. I did it on the iMac Pro using remote desktop, so I was really doing it on my machine at home. Quite doable. I wouldn't call it a pleasant experience, but for urgency cases, I can do whatever I need on my desktop.
Would it make more sense to remote into your laptop on that as opposed to the desktop from a screen resolution standpoint? Would that make more
You know,
sense?
it might work a little better, but I'm best set up for production
Okay.
on my desktop. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to give that a try though, Jim,
Yeah.
because
No, just
the laptop's not an always on device for me either, though. Is it?
yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I no, just thinking from a though, if you were on a trip and you knew you were going to be gone, and maybe you turn the laptop on and
Mm-hmm.
leave it on while you're traveling, and then you remote into that as opposed to remoting it. I mean, say you did. I mean, the kids these days, they do everything on their laptops,
Oh yeah.
and so like desktop. What is that? They don't. I mean, now creatives, maybe that's different in the creative space because they know the power that's there, but. These laptops are getting so powerful. Just kind of wondering, maybe they'd be a little bit better
Well,
of an experience to come in on the laptop.
I'm going to try it, Jim, and I'm going to report back to you.
All right. All right.
Uh,
Sounds good.
well, yeah. I mean, my iMac Pro, that's older. I got that in 2017, but it's a 3 gigahertz, 10 core Xeon processor.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's pretty powerful. It's
yeah,
still pretty powerful.
64 gigabytes of memory.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, versus my MacBook Pro, if I'm rendering a video, the MacBook will do it about twice as fast
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
a beast of a desktop,
Yeah. Well, there's big jumps. I mean, they made a big jump between those two. You
Yep.
think 2017, that's,
It's a while ago.
it's a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah. And
mean,
the M series chips have come out since then. Right.
if you still got a very usable 7-year-old desktop, you're doing okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
No. No, right on.
I don't think it'll be long before Apple nudges me off of there. I don't know when they'll decide they're not interested in supporting Intel machines anymore.
Right.
It'll come.
Well, it's a beautiful monitor, right? I mean,
It's gorgeous.
uh-huh.
It
Yeah.
really, I mean,
Yeah.
as a standalone self-contained system, those iMac Pros are very, very good.
Yeah. Can you use that as an external monitor? Could you
I,
use the MacBook and put
I
the
don't know
screen
if
on?
it'll work as an external
Okay.
monitor. I
Okay.
don't think it has a gazinta. That's
Yeah,
technical. A
good. Right.
gazinta and a gazota,
Right. Yeah, it goes in.
which
Well,
is a shame because it is a spectacular monitor.
Yeah. Well, and you're now in a weird world where you bought that app, right? To that's on the iPad, the Jump
Right.
desktop. But
Yeah.
that Jump desktop, that doesn't work on your laptop, right? That's a
Correct.
right.
It's an app.
Right. So you bought that. It's not like you can now load that on your laptop to also do the same thing. And
No,
I,
which
listen,
I
I
would
know
love
Mac.
to.
I know they have remote control software, though, right? I mean,
Yeah, this
right?
this was just I found it very well done, really straightforward to get it set up. And
Yeah,
as an app, it wasn't crazy. It was 14.99
yeah,
one time purchase.
right.
You you load the program onto the desktop computer and just kind of worked. A little bit of playing around to get the audio pass through, which I obviously needed to do
Yeah,
audio editing on
right,
the
right.
iPad.
Yeah,
I believe you can set up some file sharing, although that's not what I'm necessarily interested in doing. If I have to go to the desktop, I'll just do the work there and send it from there to
right.
or upload it wherever. There's no point in doing it from the iPad. But no, that worked out fine, really. So,
Brian says there's a dongle that you can buy. Of course, there's a dongle you can buy. It's probably $1,000. Called a Luna that
whoa.
allows. He thinks that allows you to use the iMac as an external monitor.
All right. Well, once they kill off my support on iOS, I guess it's
Listen,
going to be a very
that,
expensive monitor.
that monitor is going to last forever. I mean, it's
Oh
a
yeah,
beautiful monitor.
yeah.
It's that's one of the things I always loved on the Apple side, even when I was a non-Apple guy. Their monitors were amazing. Yeah, of course, I have a monitor problem, so I love their monitors, and I just hate to see a monitor like that go to the
It,
landfill. It's so
it
beautiful.
no, it's a thing of beauty, and
Yeah.
normally in this day and age, you'd think 27-inch. That's not much, but it really the resolution on it is great.
Is it a
Yep,
5K?
it is.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
It
Yeah.
is.
And it's a 2017 5K. So, I
Yep.
mean, we think like 4K, 8K, we're talking 8K at this point. You're like, yeah, but like 2017, there wasn't a
Yeah.
lot of that out there, you
No,
know.
no, it was particularly spectacular in
Yeah.
2017.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was super good. Super good.
But
Do you think okay, so you drove to Canada. When you fly, next time you fly,
yeah.
will it be is that going to be something you're going to pull out and use the whole time on the flight to watch movies or that kind of
Oh,
stuff? Is this where this goes?
absolutely. I think it does give you more flexibility for that, when if you're in a cramped seat with somebody putting their seat back, sometimes if you've got a laptop, you can't get the right angle on it to see it. At least, with the iPad, well, pop it out of the keyboard and just hold it and watch
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
Put it on your tray table. So I think it gives you more flexibility in that regard. So why not,
Yeah.
Jim?
Yeah. Do you are you going to use it during the week at all? Is this going to stay in the will this stay in the sleeve until the next vacation? How's that going to work?
So I'm testing that out for when I go to work in the studio in
Okay.
Salem. Normally if I'm
Mhm.
live streaming the show, I have my laptop next to me just to check the streams, on a different computer, make sure everything is okay. And no reason I couldn't just bring the smaller computer to do that.
Right.
It free up some more space for me on the
Mhm.
desk too,
Mhm.
having the 13 versus the 16-inch
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Uh, And listen, it's a nicer display, my
Yeah.
16-inch.
Yeah. Yeah. You're what the so the laptop you had before, you sold that to my daughter and she uses it all the time. What size was that?
That was a 13. That
So
was
she yeah, okay. So that
that
was
was the
13.
first M1
Okay.
13-inch MacBook
Yeah.
Air.
Yeah.
And listen, that's still a very good and viable machine.
Yeah. She
Uh,
uses the heck out of it. She's on it
yeah.
all the time, Ed.
Well,
She's already listen, she's already been on it more than you ever were on it. I
oh
mean,
yeah.
she's on it all the time. And it's she takes it everywhere and it's been a good little laptop for her.
And a buddy of mine was telling me just this morning, yesterday, he saw, some alert come in. Somebody was selling that M1 uh, MacBook Air for $399.
Oh wow.
He said, I was going to buy it, except I don't need one. And then when I went back 2 hours later, they were gone. I said,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd expect they would be at that
Yeah.
price.
Yeah. Yeah. That
You
makes a
know,
good little it makes a good little travel device as well. I mean, I think that's another I mean, I would at work I could use it at work for productivity. I'd put it on a big
yeah.
monitor, right?
No, and
But
listen, I could have used that for my life events. Just wanted more screen real estate,
uh-huh.
because when you got OBS and all the other stuff you got to have, you really need two monitors uh, to work effectively for
Right.
producing that show. And
Right.
one little one's not good. I need big.
Yeah.
You know that, Jim.
Yeah.
You need
No,
giant
for sure.
monitors.
You absolutely that is that is your God-given right to have as much monitor space as possible.
Right.
I tell people all the time that, and they're like, "Yeah, but you have too much." Like, well, no, it's not possible. It's not.
But
I'm trying to find spots for two or three more down here.
although you're a monitor man, so maybe you can help
Yeah,
me with this
yeah,
and
yeah,
let me know if this is a problem with me. But listen, these giant curved monitor things,
yeah.
for the way I work, I don't like it. I always
Oh,
want two monitors. And
yeah.
people will say, "Oh, you just have two on the same screen." Well, that's not how I
No,
work.
no, no.
Like I need the
Yeah,
physical divide for the
yeah.
activities.
Yes, yeah, yes, yes.
That
You do.
must just be a mindset thing, right?
It's okay. So here in the studio setup, I've got a 37-inch curved and then I've got a 27-inch curved gaming monitor, Windows on one, Mac on the other.
Right.
Using Synergy to go in between them, one keyboard, one mouse, works great. The physics, but they're physically different OSs, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are moments here where these widescreens you don't get sometimes these browsers are optimized for 1080 or for 4K
Right.
and not for the smaller ones, and there are moments when you do split them on the screen where the browsers get a little bit smaller, and yeah, you could
Mm.
overlap them and flip
Right.
flop between the two. On the work side, I definitely have I've got two monitors. Actually, I have three, but one's above it. But two side by side, and those are the workflow. I put a spreadsheet up on one side, and I put the web stuff I need to go to look these people up
Right.
on the other. And I do like the physical divide
Yeah.
down the
See,
middle.
see, for me, the iMac Pro monitor is where I'm working, and the secondary monitor is for nonsense. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm playing a YouTube video on the other monitor
Yes.
while I'm
Yes.
working
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
iMac Pro, and I don't
Yeah.
want that distraction on the monitor that I'm working on.
Yeah. You almost need it far enough away from
There
even from
is
an eye.
actually a dividing space between those two.
Your eye gets
Yep,
stopped. It's like a fence.
yep, yeah,
Tony says he uses share mouse to go between Windows and Mac. And Tony, I may need to go to that at some point. Synergy's making some waves that they may go out of business and not do any more updates or some of those kinds. I have to go. I'll have to look into it. But yeah, Ed,
yeah.
I'm
I mean,
kind of with you. I do like physically two different. Now, when I'm doing the
mhm,
show, I've got everything jammed together here. So for podcasting, I like them all close together. I like the multiple
yeah,
things, because I have us here, I've got the chat room in the middle, and then I've got the show notes all the way to the
yeah,
right, and it keeps them kind of close, for
yeah.
me.
No, I think it makes sense. Yeah, and for me on the iMac Pro, I just run parallels when I need Windows things.
Yeah. Yeah.
which for me is rare, but our computer in the studio is Windows 11.
Yeah.
So occasionally I want to try something at home, so I just fire up Parallels for that. And
Yeah.
that works
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'll be honest. I mean, I wouldn't. I would not want to run Parallels on the Mac. I kind of like it. Just I like the Mac, and I like the PC, the PC.
It really doesn't hurt anything, Jim.
No, I know, but I just don't
Yeah.
want to take one down to bring another one up. I like them all on at the same time.
And,
You know.
since I loaded it with 64 gigabytes of memory, I can
Yeah.
afford a little bit for
Oh, for
Windows.
sure. Yeah, for sure. No,
You know,
that
you give Windows 16, you still got 48 for the
yeah,
Mac. You're
right on.
fine.
No, right on.
Yeah.
No, that absolutely works out. It's just funny how those different workflows work differently
Yeah.
for, even we were joking about this, I think, in the pre-show, that even I run the My Radar weather app sometimes in
Right.
portrait, and then I sometimes run it in landscape because I want like there's certain things if I'm like in portrait, the forecast is easier to see, and in landscape, the way the weather travels across is easier to see. And so,
Oh, your radar map is got to be
yeah,
landscape. Yeah.
right, right, yeah. You go like, I want more width as opposed to height, but the forecast looks better. Anyways, we listen. We all have our productivity hacks, right? And I just for me, I like the screen real estate. Okay, you told me at the very beginning of the show, Ed, you're going to tell me what I need to buy next.
Yeah. I
Are
don't
we
think.
there? Are you ready?
Yeah, I don't think you're an iPad guy, Jim.
Okay. All right.
You just don't strike me as that kind of guy. So I know you've been holding off, and it really looks like coming up, Apple's going to start to push that M4 to their other devices. So I think the next thing you're going to buy is, you're going to buy that iMac Mini with an M4 chip in it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, right?
I think you're right. Yeah, yeah, that would be a no-brainer, right? And it would be we're coming up. I think we're coming up on 3 years on the Mac. Is this? Am I in my second year? I think I am.
Mm.
Do you think that'll come out next
I
spring, next
I
fall?
I think it'll be sometime in 2025 you'll see that.
Okay.
And listen, I find Apple's not terrible with their trade-in stuff
Right.
either.
Right. Yeah.
Usually I'm pleasantly surprised at what their offer turns out to be. They're not going overboard, but it's always
Right.
seemed reasonable.
Yeah. And you know me, I don't like to sell stuff. So if they just take it on trade, that's
And
the way I
they
like
send
it.
you the perfect packaging to send it
Right.
back to them. They
Yeah.
make it easy to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Tony brings up a good point, and they talked about this recently. You got to upgrade if you want the Apple Intelligence. That's the AI stuff. That's
AI, Apple Intelligence, that's what it stands for.
those dirty rascals. Yeah, they well, we'll see. We'll listen, Microsoft just released a whole bunch of new hardware that's got a neural processor in it. That's what they're calling it.
Mm,
It's really
well,
just it's a fancy video card is what it is.
uh,
So
yeah.
we'll see.
So, yeah, I mean, I think I'll hold off on any iPhone upgrades till I see how that shakes out.
Yeah, we're both on 12, right? Didn't we
Yeah.
talk about that? We're both on 12. I think
Yeah,
so
I'm
too.
not seeing quite the battery life that I used to, but that's okay.
I have no problems. Now, I plug it in, I plug it into the car to get Apple CarPlay
Right.
when I drive in, and I'm driving in every day. So it's charging just fine during and I get home and I'm still not having any battery trouble with this thing. It lasts all day. I probably have 50% right now,
Mm.
and I've been home all day. I didn't even go anywhere.
Yeah, and
So,
I tend to overreact, right? If I see any number less than 50%, it kind of freaks me out.
okay.
Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
but
Well, that could be the case. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I just threw one of those Anchor power packs in my pocket, and that's the one that attaches with MagSafe to the back of the
Mhm.
phone, which
Mhm.
gives you over one more charge, almost two, I think.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and on a long day, I just pop that on and
Mhm,
it's all good
mhm.
again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Sometimes this would scare you to death. Sometimes when I go to bed and the last thing I'm checking it or I'm doing whatever, setting the alarm, it says 20%.
oh
And I
no.
get that. I get that. Do you want to go to low power mode? And I'm going to bed. And I'm like, no, I'm going to bed. I'm going to plug this thing in
Uh,
a minute. It's
I
going to
have a
be
lot
fine.
of battery anxiety. I took the Tesla up to Canada.
Oh yeah. How'd that go?
Oh boy.
Yeah. How'd
Actually,
that go?
I thought it went great. Although,
Hmm.
what it'll do is their nav is actually very good in that I'll put in my destination in Canada and it tells me which superchargers to stop at and how many minutes to charge there.
Wow.
And yeah, my problem is I won't believe them. They say charge for 16 minutes and then you can go, and I'll say, well, no, because you could be lying to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
charge for 25 minutes, and
Right.
that's all there
Right.
is to it. But you know, I think uh, to go that distance, 400 miles, they recommended two stops, and the first one was for 14 minutes, according to them, and it probably would have been fine.
Yeah.
And the second one was 16 minutes. And honestly, for 400 miles, I'm stopping twice anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So
Right. Right.
by the
Yeah.
time you use the facilities and grab a cup of coffee, it's done.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not, for me, it's not a big impact thing.
Do you find any did you find any trouble like when you got there, like chargers aren't available or you have to wait for them or
No, and it's sort of
Mm.
interesting. They'll show you on the UI in the car how many are currently available and
Mm.
also how many are navigating to the chargers at that point in time. So you'll
Wow.
see,
Yeah.
oh, there's only two people navigating. There's six slots open. I should be good.
Wow.
Yeah,
That see, that
actually.
would give me anxiety. Then I would be
Well,
like
if you saw a
racing.
bunch of people
Yeah.
well,
Yeah. And then well, I wouldn't
well,
make
and
that
this is
sound
just
because
a
it's an electric car.
when you don't know how their algorithms work,
Right.
are they saying that I should charge for 14 minutes if I'm traveling at the speed limit?
Right.
Right? Because it's a
Right.
very different matter driving at 75 miles an hour versus 55. You know,
Yeah.
your efficiency is nowhere close.
Right.
So I'm not sure how they're coming up with their numbers, and I don't trust them.
But if it's a difference between 17 and 25 or even 17 and 27, like
Yeah, wouldn't you take the little bit extra?
just go top it off, walk around a little bit, do some push-ups, something.
Yeah,
And
I like to. I like to. If I'm going to stop at a supercharger, I like to charge to 80%,
okay,
and after 80%, the rate of charge is going to slow down.
right,
Same as watching a phone, right? Oh my God, I already got 80% back, and then to get to 90 takes that long again.
right, right.
So,
When you got to Quebec, did you have any trouble finding chargers up there? Or was that a pretty easy thing to do? How's Canada doing on this stuff?
Canada's doing okay. In fact, what I did is I actually made a third not recommended stop to put it back to 80%. We weren't really driving around because we were right in the city, but I wanted to just go when it was
Yeah,
time to leave rather
right,
than, okay, go start charging and then you can leave.
right.
So, no, I'd say in Quebec City, there were probably four within, 10 miles of where I was staying. So certainly no lack of chargers in Canada.
Okay.
Jim, when I'm out here at night, a lot of the bugs kind of crawl on my screen and
Oh
stuff.
no! Oh no!
Yeah,
They're
but
getting
it's
through the
okay.
screen. They're getting through the screen. For
Uh,
those who don't know, Ed is on his patio. You had a nice view to start with. It almost looks like black curtains now
yeah.
behind you.
Uh,
Yeah.
Listen, sometimes my dog Milo leaves the door open.
Ah.
And Yeah, he's crashed out in the corner for this whole podcast. He has zero interest.
He's not interested in
Not
an iPad
interested.
Pros
He's
or.
not interested in the debate. He's just not interested, Jim.
Well, we'll wrap it on this, Ed. I found this the other day, and I think you might want to pick one
Oh
since you had
no.
what you were going to tell me what
Right.
I need to get. I am now going to tell you, and you need your own personal charger, but it's a generator. So
Ah,
the front end is for the for the car, but if you can always just fire up the generator on the backside. Doesn't seem to make sense. We're trying to get away from the fossil fuel thing with this, but okay.
huh.
I just thought this was pretty hilarious that they make these portable
Well,
chargers. If you don't have electricity where you're at, this will charge your car for you.
yeah. See, well, I don't actually need it. I have almost that set up now, Jim. I do have a whole house generator
Yeah.
and a level two charger at home, so I can charge my car when we have no
I
power
was,
to
I
the
was gonna
house.
say the generator was put in before the
Yep,
car, but
yep.
it's sized. It's still appropriate. It would charge. Could charge the car. Or would it
So
slow charge it?
I've had no issue with it, but that is a 50 amp circuit going to the level two charger. So if I wanted to be safe, I would probably take the car down from its normal 40 amps and maybe have it just pull 20 amps for charging.
Okay.
But I have had it plugged in when we lost power and didn't see any issues from it.
Okay. Yeah. Are you electric heat or are you
No,
gas heat? Your
no
gas
gas heat.
gas heat. So you don't in the winter you want to air conditioning in the summer
Yeah,
maybe although we just put in this new air conditioner, the Sear 5 or whatever
yeah. Well,
thing.
the
And it's,
efficiencies improve so
yeah,
much.
it's ridiculous. Actually, I got my first bill from, like my first real cooling bill,
Yeah.
and it was two-thirds
Wow.
of what that was last year during the same time period with the old
Yeah,
unit.
the efficiencies come a long way
Yeah.
with those. I mean, you're an old guy. You remember the bigger window units all used to have to be 240 volts. Now
Mhm.
the same cooling capacity they can do on
Yeah.
110.
Yeah. Well, I got one in the smoke shack that I use that
Yeah.
it's on a little cord. It's on
Yep.
I'm running an extension cord for God's sakes out to run it. And yeah, they're pretty efficient. Tony says he goes, I only go 50% using 24 amps on a 60 amp circuit at home.
Mm.
I use so little day to day. So yeah, well,
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of the people that are most dissatisfied with having an EV don't have home charging. Well,
yeah,
you shouldn't get one then.
right. Yeah,
Is the easy answer. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
for me, that's one of the best parts of it. Just plug it in when I get home. It's full the next day. Haven't been to a gas station in years.
yeah, yeah. Not missing anything, by the way. You're
No,
not missing
well,
anything.
I make a trip once a year for snowblower gas, but
Hmm.
if the snowblower dies, I may go electric on that too.
Huh? They're getting better. I
Yeah.
I don't know if like I
Hey,
did mower.
it,
I did the early versions of the mower. The mowers are
yeah.
getting better. I might go that route.
Snowblowing's harder. I mean,
It is.
the Aaron's professional snowblower I have is a beast,
Yeah.
and they're not making an electric one
No,
that'll
not
throw
like
snow
that.
like that.
No, not
No.
like that. No, and I have the zoysia grass out front, which is super thick and lush. And in the summer, when I was cutting it, if I let it get a little too long, I'd have to take that thing back in for like I'd get three-quarters of it done, and then that blade would just go whoop
Yeah.
and stop, and you're like, well, okay, now they are making them now with swappable batteries, and you can have a couple
Yeah.
of them. But again, you're in a couple $1,000 at that point.
Well, and
Those batteries aren't cheap.
listen, this winter I think I only had the snowblower out twice.
For sure.
Didn't
For
have
sure.
much snow, and
Yeah, thanks,
Those
global warming.
times it was mostly because it was some snow and then rain, so it was kind of heavy slush that I didn't want to push around with a shovel.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Listen. I have a 15 or maybe 20-year-old snowblower now.
Yeah,
Still
they
works just
keep
fine.
going.
I need to replace the auger. It has some replaceable blades. That's not.
Ah,
It's just some covers. They're like there's some kind of material, and I need to replace those. But I'm like you. I'm kind of thinking like, well, I pulled it out all of 2 times last year. Now we've just both jinxed it. So
I
now
know.
we're gonna get 1,000 inches of snow this
Uh,
this next winter.
and I looked at the oil and said, "Well, why would I waste it? It's
Right.
synthetic oil,
Right. Yeah.
barely used.
It's
All
got
right,
5 hours.
gonna let it roll." Yeah,
Yeah, you have 5 or 10 hours on
yeah.
it. It's yeah, no, right on. I think actually when next time I replace my generator oil, I will probably put a synthetic in there
Mm,
just for that purpose is, you're kind of like, well, I only run that thing. As soon as I bought the home generator, we haven't
yeah.
lost power. Not once. That's not
It's
true.
good insurance.
Maybe once. Yeah, it just keeps you from losing power is what it's $800 wasn't a bad deal well, that was during the early days of the pandemic and I thought the world was going to end.
Right.
So,
Well,
you never know.
I put mine in years ago and just finally felt like it was worth it this year because we lost power for over 48 hours.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
it
for
felt
sure.
worth it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I start losing my mind after 24 because
Yeah.
I'm thinking all this food, I got to take it somewhere and not anymore. Not anymore. It's kind of nice. Well, Ed, thanks for that update. I will not buy the iPad Pro. Is
No,
what you're telling me? No.
I don't think much of anybody should, Jim.
Okay.
um,
All right.
well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of talk about the new Pencil Pro and how much better it is. So if you really have an app where the pencil makes sense,
Mm,
but
yeah.
I don't know. Some people are, doing handwritten notes on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, not for me. I don't draw a picture. I thought of
Mhm.
getting a pencil. What was I going to do? Make one doodle and say, wow. And then
Ooh,
that would be
yeah.
it.
Yeah. I had the pencil for my Surface for a while. I have no idea where it went. It would magnetize to it.
Mm,
I have not. Somebody was like, "Yeah, but with the new AI, you can start writing, and then it follows up behind you, and it corrects it and puts it in a readable cursive." And I was
yeah.
like, I don't can't remember the last time I wanted to write on something, you know?
Well, I saw somebody complaining because Apple hadn't integrated Find My in the pencil, and I think they were sick of buying $150 pencils that they
Yeah,
misplaced.
yeah. I think the pencil is still sitting in that top drawer right there, and
You know exactly where it
I
is.
know I know where it's at. I
Yeah.
just can't remember the last time I'm like, I want to use a pencil on a computer. That makes a lot. Listen, for artists and some of those kinds of things, it makes total sense. I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
But
and
that's just not.
the new one is squeezable.
Oh,
So
what does that mean?
I think if you squeeze it, it can, depending on the app, bring up different menu
Oh,
choices.
okay. It's
Uh,
got buttons or
yeah, and it's got some
oh,
rotational to it as well, so
oh
that by turning it, it changes the way the pencil. So if you're drawing with it, you could probably do some cool things. But
yeah.
I can't draw.
If you get lost, can people find you with?
No, you can't find my with a pencil, Jim. I told you that.
Oh, I'm talking about you having the pencil. Well, I guess that makes sense, anyways. Well, Ed, thanks for coming on. How's the candle? How did the scented candle hold out
It did
during?
well. They last a long time when you're talking a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't get it. But listen, this is a winner for Rainier Lorenzo over at HVC.
Okay,
He was at the event tonight. Very nice gentleman.
okay. HVC, good cigars.
Yeah,
I enjoy them. Hot cakes, enjoy those, and some good stuff. You know what's weird? Right here at the end of the show, your video has cleared up,
it'll be
and
perfect. I think probably it had something to do with that debate.
oh,
Yeah,
Oh,
they were using up all the bandwidths or something.
huh. That would be weird. Well, we'll have to see how the recording goes. Very very possible maybe on your end. I should have enabled local recording for this, and then I could
Yeah,
have.
I
That would have
mean,
been a
it,
smart
I
thing to
mean,
do.
wouldn't you know it? Our Sundays are perfect.
I know.
We don't have a single issue.
We're sharing screens. We're
Oh yeah.
playing YouTube videos to each other. We're doing all this high intensity. I'm out in the shed, so I'm farther away. You're there. We don't have any. Is the debate over? I imagine by now it is. So
Eh,
maybe it was the debate.
I
That's
wonder
weird.
wonder who won this. Are there any winners? I don't know.
I think we're only losers. I think we're only losers in that.
All right,
Well,
that's as
not to get
political as you want to
that's
go.
right. That's definitely as political as I want to go. Well, can you hang tight for 1 second?
Sure thing.
All right. Couple reminders on the way out. One, if you want to catch the show notes for this, and there'll be all the links that Ed talked about in the show notes, theaverageguy.tv/ HGG613 is this episode. Big thanks to Christian over there at Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. About time to get him back on the podcast anyway, and kind of catch up with him. Check him out today, maplegrovepartners.com. You can leave us a message for the show, homegadgetgeeks.com. That's actually a kind of a really cool site. That's a pod page site that you can go to. Pod page, is that right? Yeah, Dave says that all. It is pod page, right? Did I get that right, Ed?
Yes.
Is it pod
Yes, you
page?
did.
Okay, good.
It's Pod
Okay, all of a
Page.
sudden it didn't sound right. You know,
It's Gage over at Pod Page, isn't
yeah, yeah, something like that. And you can check that out, homegadgetgeeks.com. If you want to join the Discord group, join us over there, theaverageguy.tv/Discord. Next week, it's the 4th of July. We're going to celebrate us throwing off the ruthless shackles from our friends across the pond. On July 4th, we'll burn. I wonder, have you ever looked up, hey, Ed, this is a thing we would do on Sunday.
All right.
Hey, Ed, how much do you think the United States spends in fireworks each 4th of July as we celebrate independence? What is it?
Let's
You are
see.
crystal clear. Like you are crystal. Maybe we should do the whole podcast over again. Yeah.
$2.3 billion in
Oh,
consumer fireworks.
wow.
Yeah.
Consumer. So that
That's
rules out
consumer.
all the professional displays, right?
Yeah, that was in 2022. So that's across the year, but you got to imagine the bulk
Man.
of it is at the 4th of July.
Yeah. Yeah. $2.3 billion every year. Brian says coffee greater than tea, USA, 4th of July. Good stuff. We'll be back next week's 4th of July. That's where I was going. No show next week. We'll be enjoying that holiday off. And then the week after, Jay Madison's coming back. And we'll spend some time. We got some updates. I think it's been 2 years since I've had him on. So we'll have some updates from him as well. And then I got some new folks to schedule. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. Not every, but most. Here at theaverageguy.tv /live, and love to have you a part of the show. If you're listening to the recorded version of this, come out some Thursday night. I know, you got things to do, but so do I. Get out here and watch us sometime. We have a good time. Ed's video eventually straightened out, and you can too. We'd love to have you in the chat room. So come out and join us. For everybody listening live, we'll just do a short post show. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. Yeah, crazy how clear you are now. You are crystal clear. That is
I
bizarre.
didn't change anything,
I
Jim.
know, and it should have worked just fine. Where maybe it was your neighbors are hacking your Wi-Fi and they were watching. They had their whole house. They had it on every TV in their house.
You think my Wi-Fi was hacked by debate watchers?
Yeah. There's less plausible things, but that could have been.
I don't know. I don't know how it sounds. The only headline I saw was that Biden's team said he has a cold to explain his poor debate performance.
Oh,
So,
I can't. Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if I actually want to see any of it.
I'm not gonna. I need to engage in some of it just to be a good citizen, right? Just to be a good citizen, we should engage in some of it in some way. But
Or maybe on Sunday we'll check some clips, Jim.
Let's do that.
All
Let's
right.
do that. Let's do that. Guys, if you're listening live, thanks for coming out. I'm going to let you guys go. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Take care, everybody. If I can find the end stream. And then Dave always